Right now, imagine a man walking back into camp with blood on his hands and an animal over his shoulders. He has been gone since sunrise. He tracked it through dry grass for hours. He lost the trail once, found it again, waited for the poison on his arrow to do its work, and finally dragged the body home. He is exhausted, hungry, covered in dust, and then he gives most of it away. Not the leftovers, not the scraps, the real food, the part everyone wants. No bank, no wallet, no coins, no debt, no paycheck, no lying awake wondering if you have enough. For most of human history, this was normal. You survived not because you owned things, but because other people remembered you. So if money is so essential to survival, how did humans manage without it for 98% of our history? What did they use instead? And here's the part that really got me. Why did we stop? Okay, so here's where your brain is going to push back. The hunter does not sit down and calculate what every person owes him. He does not say, I killed this, so I own it. In many hunter-gatherer societies, that idea would have sounded strange. The animal came from the land. The hunt depended on knowledge passed down by the group. The bow was made with help. The fire was kept by someone else. The children were watched while he was gone. So when the meat enters camp, it is already tangled in relationships. This wasn't charity. This wasn't kindness in the way we understand it. This was the economy. Anthropologists call it a gift economy. But gift makes it sound optional. It wasn't. It was the system. And it ran for longer than any stock market, any currency, any central bank has ever lasted. Here's how it actually worked. Every time you shared, you weren't losing something. You were depositing it into the community. No receipt, no ledger. But the group remembered. They almost always did. The man who shared generously last month, when his hunt failed, someone fed his kids. The man who kept too much for himself, people noticed, and slowly, quietly, he started getting less help. Your generosity was your credit score. Your selfishness was your bankruptcy. And unlike a bank score, everyone could see it. Every meal was a transaction, but not in the modern sense. Nobody swiped a card. Nobody signed a contract. The contract was your face, your history, and the fact that tomorrow you would still be sitting beside the same fire. Now, that works when you live with 30 people and see each other every day. But what about people you don't live with? What about a camp that's 3 days walk away? Some groups in southern Africa built long-distance exchange partnerships. You'd pick a specific person in a faraway camp, someone you trusted, and over the years, you'd send things back and forth. A carved tool, a set of bone beads, an animal skin. But here's the thing. The objects weren't really the point. Researchers who studied these networks found that the items exchanged were often roughly equal in value, sometimes not. It didn't matter. The exchange wasn't really about the stuff. It was a handshake that lasted a lifetime, because when your region dried up, when the animals disappeared, when disease swept through your camp, you could walk to that partner's territory, show up at their fire, and they would take you in, feed you, shelter you, for as long as you needed. Why? Because you had a relationship. Because for years, you'd been sending each other arrows and beads, not as payment, as proof that you mattered to each other. That is the part we usually miss. Some of the earliest exchange networks may not have been about moving products first. They were about keeping doors open. A bead was not just decoration. A tool was not just a tool. A gift was a message that said, if the rains fail here, I may need you there. Today, we pay insurance premiums to corporations. They exchanged handmade gifts with friends. Both systems protect you against disaster. Only one of them also makes you feel less alone. But inside the camp, there was another rule that feels almost impossible to a modern mind. In many of these communities, hoarding was seen as one of the worst things you could do, keeping too much for yourself. Among some Aboriginal Australian groups, anthropologists documented a practice called demand sharing. If you had something, food, a tool, anything useful, another person could simply ask you for it, and you were expected to give it, not out of generosity, out of obligation. Saying no carried real social consequences. People would remember, and next time you needed something, the answer might be no too. Imagine spending all morning shaping a tool. You smooth the edge, you test the weight, you finally get it right. Then someone walks over and asks for it. And in your world, no is not just a personal choice. It is a public statement. It says, I am separate from you. My need matters more than the group. That is dangerous when the group is the thing keeping you alive. But then I looked at what this system actually produced. Rarely did anyone accumulate more than anyone else. Rarely did anyone go without while someone else had plenty. The gap between the richest and poorest person in the group was essentially zero, not because of a policy, because of a culture. The wealthiest person in camp was rarely the one holding the most. It was the one who had given away the most, because that person had the most people willing to return the favor. At some point, we completely flipped that logic. Today, wealth means accumulation. Back then, wealth meant circulation. Their version was more stable. Ours crashes about once a decade. Okay, now I need to undo something your school probably taught you. You've heard this story. It's in almost every economics textbook. It goes like this. Early humans bartered directly. My fish for your berries. But barter was clumsy. What if you didn't want my fish? So eventually, somebody invented money to fix the problem. Clean story. Makes perfect sense. Except anthropologists have struggled to find evidence that it did. Anthropologist David Graeber made this point in a way that still feels uncomfortable. The classic story of barter turning into money may be less like history and more like a convenient thought experiment. Many anthropologists have argued that small-scale societies did not usually run on constant one-time trades between strangers. My fish for your berries. They ran on memory, obligation, reputation, and delayed return. You helped me today. I help you later. Not perfectly, not mathematically, but enough for the system to work. The actual path looks nothing like the textbooks. Sharing and obligation came first. Then informal credit. I owe you, you owe me. The community keeps track. Money came last. And it didn't replace barter. It replaced trust. Before money, most exchanges carried a relationship with them. You gave something to someone, and a thread connected you afterward. After money, that thread snaps. You pay, you receive, you walk away. No thread, no memory, no obligation. Money didn't invent exchange. People had been exchanging things for hundreds of thousands of years. What money did was make exchange impersonal. That was its power, and its cost. So if all of these systems worked, sharing, reputation, long-distance partnerships, why did any of it change? Because relationship has a ceiling. There's a number that helps explain why face-to-face trust stops scaling. It's 150. That's roughly how many people your brain can actually keep track of. Names, faces, histories, who owes who you'd trust at 3 a.m. A researcher named Robin Dunbar figured this out by studying primate brains. Bigger brain, bigger social circle. For humans, the ceiling is about 150. For most of human existence, that was plenty. Your entire world was your band and maybe a few neighboring camps. Most people fit inside that limit. Then agriculture changed everything. People stopped moving. They settled. Populations grew. Villages turned into towns. Towns turned into cities. And suddenly, you were standing next to someone you'd never seen before, trying to get something you needed. You couldn't check their reputation. You couldn't ask around. Nobody in your circle could vouch for them. The old systems, sharing, reciprocity, relationship-based trade, all of them required one thing: personal knowledge of the other person. And personal knowledge doesn't scale. So humans invented a workaround, a token that carried trust without needing a face behind it. A small object that basically said, you don't know me, but this thing I'm holding proves that someone, somewhere, trusted me enough to give it to me. That's money, not a stroke of genius. A patch for a trust system that broke because there were too many strangers in the room. Money was not invented because humans suddenly became rational. Money became necessary when trust had to travel farther than memory could reach. And the earliest versions weren't coins or paper. They were records, marks on clay tablets, accounts of grain, labor, animals, and obligations in ancient Mesopotamia. One of the earliest financial systems wasn't cash in your hand, it was debt. We still haven't gotten out of it. Now, I want to be straightforward. I'm not making a romantic argument that the past was better. It wasn't. Life expectancy was short. Child mortality was devastating. A broken bone could end you become fatal. An infection without antibiotics was a death sentence far more dangerous than it is now. Money made extraordinary things possible. It let strangers cooperate at scale. It funded hospitals, built infrastructure across continents, launched satellites. It's hard to imagine a gift economy building the internet. That matters. I don't want to pretend it doesn't, but we also gave up things we don't usually account for. We built a world where you can go hungry surrounded by grocery stores, not because food is scarce, but because you don't have the right number in your account. A world where you can live in a building with 200 other people and never learn a single name. A world that teaches children from a very young age that their worth is something you can measure, deposit, and withdraw. Money feels permanent because we meet it every day. Rent, groceries, gas, subscriptions, student loans. The number on the screen becomes the weather inside your head. But in the full timeline of human existence, money is not ancient. It is recent. It is the last few minutes of a very long human day. Here's what I keep coming back to. Tonight, before you fall asleep, you'll probably check that number one more time. The same one you checked this morning. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a very old part of your brain will do what it's always done. Scan for the people around you. Count who's close. Measure whether you're safe. That part of you doesn't understand bank accounts. It was built for a world where safety meant people, not numbers. Our ancestors didn't survive without money by being primitive. They survived by being deeply, structurally connected to the people around them. In their world, every meal was shared, every favor was remembered, every relationship was a safety net with no monthly premium. We replaced most of that with a number on a screen. I'm not saying we should go back. I'm saying we should at least understand what we traded away. If you like videos about history, human behavior, and the hidden systems behind ordinary life, subscribe. That's what this channel is about, and if this made you see money a little differently, even for a second, a like genuinely helps more than you'd think. It tells the algorithm that this kind of content matters. See you in the next one.